Okay, let's unpack this. If your mental picture of modern Italy hasn't really been updated since, I don't know, the year 2000, you are about to be surprised. We are diving deep into a nation that's undergoing this profound and sometimes really paradoxical transformation, structurally, economically, and socially.
That's absolutely right. And our
Yeah.
mission today is, well, to dig into the sources you've provided and really understand this complex balancing act.
A balancing act is the perfect way to put it.
It is. I mean, how is Italy so aggressively modernizing its infrastructure, cutting down all that famous red tape,
Hmm.
all while attracting serious global wealth and at the same time wrestling with these immense internal labor and, demographic challenges?
And the headline that really forced this deep dive, for me anyway, was that recent striking economic twist. Italy has officially surpassed the UK in GDP per capita for the first time since 2001.
It's a massive headline.
It's huge.
It is, but it comes with a big footnote, a piece of context we just can't ignore. The sources make it very clear that while Italian economic performance is robust, that per capita rise is also, well, significantly influenced by Italy's population decline.
Right, versus the UK's continued population growth.
Exactly.
And that is the crucial context, isn't it? Per capita growth driven by having fewer people isn't quite the same as growth from just sheer massive productivity gains across the board.
It's not.
Yeah.
But it does prove the system isn't stagnant. It shows there's a highly competitive and resilient core to that economy.
Okay, so let's get into what's driving that resilience.
Well, today we'll explore three main areas. First, the surprising power of its mid-sized firms and that whole export machine. Second, the major structural reforms that are finally tackling administrative gridlock.
And third,
And finally, the key social trends, particularly this aggressive magnet Italy has become for global wealth.
so let's start with that economic engine, the Made in Italy label, but not in the way you might think. We're talking about the powerhouse of the mid-sized firms.
Yeah, these are fascinating companies. They're often highly specialized, hyper-flexible, too big to be considered small business, but agile enough to pivot really quickly.
And we have a number on this, right?
We do. Around 3,650 companies that really are the backbone of Italian manufacturing. They're all about that famous emphasis on quality over, massive scale.
And their performance metrics are, frankly, stunning, especially when you put them up against their European peers.
They really are.
Over the decade between 2014 and 2023, labor productivity in these specific firms rose over 31%. Sales shot up almost 55%.
And they're creating jobs. Employment expanded by 24%. They lead Europe in productivity, and they actually outperform their French and German counterparts in revenue and job creation.
So the big takeaway here is that the Italian success story isn't about these huge faceless conglomerates.
Not at all. It's about this specialized core. I mean, these firms account for 17% of all manufacturing revenues and 14% of exports. They are the engine behind that global reputation for quality.
But is it sustainable? I mean, the sources point to some pretty serious headwinds.
Mm-hmm.
70% of these businesses are concerned about low-cost competition, which is always a threat to a quality-first model. And the threat of U.S. tariffs poses a huge political risk.
A huge risk. Up to 30% of these firms could be significantly affected. And that threat, it forces them to be adaptable. We see that reflected in how the export mix is changing.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the undisputed growth leader right now, it's not food, it's not fashion,
No.
it's pharmaceuticals. Shipments of pharmaceuticals to the U.S. jumped by more than 60% in the second quarter of 2025 alone. Just one quarter.
That is a massive structural shift. It shows Italy's deep strength in high-tech precision manufacturing that I think often goes overlooked.
But the traditional sectors are still the bedrock.
Oh, absolutely. Mechanical goods, so machinery, that's still the single most important export category.
Yeah.
Over 16% of the total. And food is expanding too. It's climbed from about 5.6 to 9.3% of total exports in the last 25 years.
Okay, so we've got this mix of pharma innovation and traditional excellence, but let's pivot to what Italy is most famous for, the design sector, or as the sources call it, the economy of beauty.
I love that term. And the economy of beauty, which, includes fashion, food, automotive design, it accounts for a massive 29% of Italy's GDP.
29%, that's not a niche market.
It's the core of their brand. This is where Italy truly differentiates itself. They lead Europe in both design revenue and employment.
And what really surprised me was how this traditional, very human-centric industry is embracing technology, specifically AI. It's seen as an ally, not a threat.
That's right. 87% of Italian firms that have invested in AI see it as support for creativity, not a replacement for the human designer.
So they're using it to augment, not automate, the creative spark.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's about leveraging tech to maintain an inherently cultural advantage. Italy's design advantage is baked right into its identity, and 80% of design professionals are already using AI tools to, say, speed up project development.
But there's a catch here, right? A geographical one.
There is a critical check on the story. Lombardy, the region around Milan alone, contributes about a third of the entire national design revenue.
Which raises the big question, how do you make sure this super creativity benefits the whole nation, not just the already dominant North?
And that regional disparity is the perfect bridge into our next theme, policy and structural reforms. Because to keep this engine humming nationwide, Italy has to finally deal with its administrative anchor.
The cost of that anchor is, it's just staggering. The sources estimate that bureaucracy alone costs Italian businesses about 43 billion euros a year.
43 billion.
That's over 2% of GDP. Just imagine what those mid-sized firms could do with that capital if it were freed up.
Well, the current goal is incredibly ambitious. Under the European Recovery Plan, they want to streamline 600 administrative procedures by June 2026.
And this isn't just shuffling papers around.
No, not at all. It's about practical measures. Things designed to reduce the friction in just everyday life and business.
Like the healthcare simplifications, allowing you to choose a family doctor directly at the local pharmacy, or expanding vaccine administration to all pharmacies for anyone over 12.
Right. It moves basic medical access out of these overloaded public offices and into, high street convenience.
And that ties into the bigger digital push.
It does. They're using a once-only policy for school registration, automating tasks with AI. And it seems to be working. Roughly 350,000 public employees were hired through the updated digital system in just the last 2 years.
So the state can move quickly when it wants to.
When it adopts modern tools, yes.
And beyond red tape, they're putting serious money into infrastructure. We're seeing this rail renaissance with over 100 billion euros allocated through 2029.
And the goal isn't just new tracks. It's about slashing journey times. The Napoli to Bari trip, for instance, is being cut down to just 2 hours. That fundamentally changes the economic viability of the South.
They're also installing the new European rail traffic management system to modernize the whole network.
For efficiency.
Yeah.
But the modernization goes underground, too. Italy is actually relaunching domestic mining exploration for the first time in 4 decades.
Yeah, that's a tectonic shift. Why now?
It's a direct response to the EU's Critical Raw Materials Act. The EU wants 10% of its critical supply to be sourced domestically by 2030.
And Italy thinks it has those materials.
It does. They're targeting lithium, rare earths, titanium, tungsten, things that are absolutely essential for the digital and green transitions. And they're doing it in a modern way, using low-impact methods like muon radiography and AI-enhanced satellite imagery, no drilling until they have very high confidence targets.
That's a very pragmatic response to all the geopolitical supply chain risk we're seeing.
Exactly.
Let's zoom in on another huge structural shift. Worker protection, specifically against health and climate risks.
The new law, starting in January 2026, is, it's groundbreaking. Workers with cancer or other serious illnesses get 24 months of job preservation if they have a 74% or more disability rating.
24 months, that's up from just 6 months.
A massive increase. And the practical flexibility is key. They get priority access to remote work agreements when they're able to return. So this isn't just a safety net, it's an active measure to help people reintegrate.
And we're seeing that same pragmatism applied to climate, to heat.
We are. The new heat protocol is non-binding, but it's politically crucial. It acknowledges that extreme heat is a recurring workplace hazard. So you see measures like adjusting schedules, providing shaded rest areas, dedicated water breaks.
The functional change here, though, is what I found fascinating. And they're encouraging the systematic use of the CIGO, that's their wage guarantee fund, for work stoppages due to heat.
And the key part is that it can be triggered based on perceived unsafe levels, not just some absolute temperature threshold.
So it's about worker well-being.
It's a cultural shift. When regions like Lazio and Tuscany start issuing mandatory bans on outdoor work during peak hours, from 12:30 to 4 p.m., you know the policy has real teeth.
Which brings us to our final section, the people and the money. we've talked about the engine and the policy, but now let's talk about the flow of global capital. And the really non-obvious angle here is that Italy is projected to be the third most popular destination globally for millionaire migration in 2025.
Hmm. They're expecting around 3,600 wealthy individuals.
So this raises the big question: why Italy, given its reputation for, complex taxes?
Right, and the sources point directly to one thing, the 2017 flat tax scheme. It's a simple 200,000 euro annual flat tax on all foreign-sourced income, and that's good for up to 15 years.
So you factor in the quality of life, the culture, the food, the real estate market, and suddenly that tax scheme makes Italy incredibly competitive with places like Monaco.
Exactly, and these 3,600 individuals could potentially bring in $21 billion in combined wealth. That is a capital injection the Italian economy can really use.
And these new migrants are joining households that are, on the whole, already pretty financially robust.
They are. Italian families rank third in Europe for total net wealth. They hold about 16% of the European total. And they're financially cautious. Their net wealth is, on average, 8 times their annual disposable income. That's higher than the Eurozone average.
That low debt profile is a signature of Italian finance, isn't it?
It really is. Financial liabilities account for only about 8.4% of their assets, which is significantly lower than the Eurozone average of over 11%. They are generally sitting on solid, substantial wealth.
And yet, even these cautious consumers are changing their habits fast. Looking back 30 years, the spending patterns are almost unrecognizable.
Oh, completely. Spending on tech and communication has soared by almost 3,000%,
3,000.
driven by the need for connectivity. At the same time, household energy spending is down more than 35%.
That reflects a massive societal shift, prioritizing digital life and energy efficiency. But the current reality in 2025 is a bit more straying, right?
Inflation is hitting hard. Over half of household spending is now going to non-negotiable essentials: housing, transport, and food.
So consumers are cutting back on discretionary spending.
They are. We see it in the food habits. Restaurant spending is down 2.2%, while grocery retail volume is up 2%. People are cooking at home more.
And let's look at one final fascinating policy experiment that addresses that demographic drain we mentioned at the top.
Yes, in regions like Molise, they've lost 30,000 residents in just 25 years. So they're running this reverse migration pilot program called Return to Your Molise.
It sounds kind of emotional.
It is, but it's a very targeted, pragmatic solution. They are luring back Molise natives, public employees over 45 who are working elsewhere, by structuring remote work agreements.
And giving them real incentive.
Strong incentives, tax breaks, co-working facilities, and of course, the intangible benefit of being able to strengthen intergenerational care, being close to family.
So it's not just an emotional homecoming, it's economic stabilization for these fragile villages. It's a potential blueprint.
Exactly. It addresses the problem not with massive infrastructure, but with policy flexibility and connectivity.
So if we synthesize this whole deep dive, the picture is one of these fascinating high-stakes contrasts.
It really is. Italy is globally competitive, driven by its mid-sized firms, its design, its pharma sectors, and it's finally solving some of these major structural issues like bureaucracy and infrastructure.
Yeah, the headwinds demographics, labor, they're enormous. Italy needs to fill between 3.3 and 3.7 million skilled positions by 2029, especially in STEM fields.
And that long-standing regional economic disparity, the north-south gap in savings and exports, it persists, and it could undermine all this national growth.
So the influx of global wealth and that GDP per capita rise are positive milestones. They buy the government some time.
Right. But the looming skilled labor crisis creates this fascinating policy paradox for the next few years.
It absolutely does. And it leads to our final thought. We saw Italy use flexible policies to bring back Molise natives through remote work and flat taxes to attract global millionaires. As Italy tries to fill 3.7 million skilled jobs by 2029, will its next big policy innovation be aimed at leveraging these new, often skilled residents, streamlining their job access and integration? Or must the focus return entirely to transforming its own domestic education system to cultivate the STEM and technical skills it so desperately lacks from within? That is something significant to mull over until our next deep dive.